My life has been enriched and changed forever by meeting some extraordinary women. However, they look just like you and they look like me. They are all ages, all races, all levels of education. What makes these women extraordinary is that they are all survivors. They've survived trauma and tragedy, including domestic violence, homelessness, addiction, and even incarceration. These women, though, have shown me and everyone whose lives they've touched the awesome power of the human spirit that is inside each one of us. What I'm going to share with you today are 3 keys to unlock your potential. Whatever is hiding inside of you that is just ready to burst forth and break free. Break free, no matter how destitute, how hopeless, or how broken we might feel. These 3 keys will unlock this hidden potential. And I'm going to share with you and introduce you to 3 of these incredible women. These women have changed my life so much that they've given me the courage, they've given me the strength that I didn't know that I had inside. And I've built an organization that's called Leap to Success, and it's dedicated to empowering women to find their own greatness inside. So let me share with you these 3 keys. Number 1, the need to be heard. Number 2, the need to be seen. And number 3, the need to be celebrated. So I'm going to start at the beginning with the need to be seen. And I want to tell you about Jill. Jill lived on the streets of San Diego for more than 10 years. And when I say live on the street, that's exactly what I mean, because Jill slept on a sidewalk in a sleeping bag. And if you were to walk down the street and look at her, she would not look up at you. She did not have a sense of self-worth. She did not have a sense of self-value. Jill was invisible. How does that even happen? How does someone become so destitute and broken that they decide that they have nothing to live for and they live on the street? Well, for Jill, she was a widow twice, and she had 4 children to raise on her own. And it was really hard to do that. So she turned to alcohol. And it numbed her, and it soothed her, but ultimately it led to her demise. She lost her job, she lost her children, she lost her home, she lost her hope. And that's how she ended up on the sidewalk. One day, through her hazy thinking, she had this idea: what if her children were to see her lying dead in a gutter? The thought of that was just too much for her, and that was her wake-up call. So she reached out for help, and she went to St. Vincent de Paul, and she got shelter. She got off the street, and she jumped into recovery programs like her life depended on it, because it did. She started picking up the broken pieces of herself and putting them back together again. When I met Jill, she had been sober for already about a year, and she was climbing forward. She was ready to take her leap. I'll come back and I'll tell you about Jill a little bit later. Do you remember the movie The Help? So that movie the story took place in the Deep South. And it was at a time where there was so much racial hatred and bigotry and prejudice that people were killed just for the color of their skin. So here's this black woman, her name is Abilene, and she's a maid for this white family. And one of Abilene's job is to take care of this little baby girl named Mae Mobley. And every single day, Abilene tells this little baby girl that she's seen. She tells her that she's important. She sits her on her lap and she looks in her eyes and she says, "You is kind. You is smart. You is important." Can you imagine if you had a champion like that in your life? Well, maybe you did. And maybe you grow up with a great sense of self-esteem and self-worth, but many people have not had that. So I have a question for you. Who can you be a champion for? Who can you look in their eyes and tell them how great they are? Tell them how special they are. Tell them how important they are. In our Leap to Confidence class, the women walk in, and these are women like Jill who have been living on the streets, many of them. And they walk into this room and they have no idea what they're in for. They just know that there's something inside of them and that confidence would really help. So they walk into our classroom, and one of the first exercises we have them do is called the 30-second exercise. What I want to tell you about the 30-second exercise is that it can be absolutely terrifying. Why? It's only 30 seconds long. We have them sit with a partner and gaze in that partner's eyes. And if you have been hiding from life, if you've been hiding from everyone that you know, to sit and look at someone in their eyes in silence can be excruciating. But that's what we have them do. The next step is to look in that person's eyes and tell them something that you admire about them. As you can only imagine, what happens then is that emotions just bubble up. There's laughter, there's tears streaming down their faces, there's hugs. These women, for the first time in a very long time, are hearing something good and valuable about themselves. And sometimes if we hear it from the outside, we believe it on the inside. So what happens in that moment is a little bit of light starts to seep through a very hard shell that has been built up for years and years. The power of being seen is palpable. The power of being seen can change a life. Who do you know that is not being seen? What can you do to let them know that they're important, that they're special, and that they're valuable? The second key to unlock potential is the power, or is the need to be heard. Domestic violence is a terrible problem in our country, worldwide as well. But 1 in 4 women will be a victim at some point during her life. And one of the tools that abusers use, and bullies use this tool also, is verbal abuse and verbal put-downs. As they put you down, they feel better about themselves. So if you grew up in an environment where you heard that you're dumb, that you're stupid, that no one else would want you, no matter how much self-esteem you had, it would start to be chipped away. And if you married someone who ultimately told you those things, you'd lose your sense of self-worth. You'd get to the point where you might even lose your soul. Domestic violence then escalates. It starts with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse. Well, Lena grew up in a household with violence. When she was 11 years old, her father shot her mother. Fortunately, her mother survived. But Lena, as she was growing up and being a teenager, she vowed that she would never, ever be in a relationship like that. She felt so horrible for her mother and what her mother endured for so many years. Well, Lena met a very charming man. She was very happy. She was in love, and they got married. They did have something in common. And what they had, one of the things they had in common was they did both come from households that had abuse. But things were good for a while. He was a very charming man, very charismatic. Everybody loved him. Well, it started with verbal abuse, and it started with control. And one day, his male cousin came over, and he told Lena that she had to stay in the bedroom. She couldn't come out with them. Well, that was strange. And it continued from there. And, there's something called the cycle of violence. And this cycle is that there are horrible times and there are wonderful times. After an episode, the abuser is so apologetic and so sorry, and it will never happen again. And it happened because I love you so much. And we get really twisted in our thinking. And women who've been abused get very twisted in their thinking because this person says that he loves them and it will never, ever happen again. Well, what happened over time was that the violence did escalate to where it became physical. And it got so bad, and this is many years later. At this time, they had 4 children. She was beaten so badly one time at Christmas that she was in the hospital, and they didn't know if she was going to survive. From that point forward, Lena knew that she had to leave and she had to stay away in order to survive, in order for her children to grow up with their mother. So it took her almost a year of planning and building up her courage. But she finally did leave. And she got on a bus in Florida with her 4-year-old daughter, Grace, and $17, and she came all the way here to San Diego where she didn't know a soul. Talk about courage, talk about strength, talk about determination. I met Lena after she had been living in domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters for 2 years. She was nominated to our very first leadership program back in 2008. And what I saw happen was just true transformation, because every week Lena got stronger. Every time she told her story to people who listened and people who cared, she healed even more. She inspired me and everyone that she's met since then. She also set a goal for herself to find her voice again. She had been a writer, and she met that goal. She published her story as a survivor, and it was on Voice of San Diego. I'm so proud of her. And building her public speaking skills, she's spoken to audiences all over San Diego. She's been on radio, she's been on TV, and she's led our Speakers Bureau for 5 years, giving speakers a voice, bringing their stories out from the dark into the light so that they can touch, they can empower, and they can inspire everybody who hears them. There's a saying in AA that we are only as sick as our secrets. We are only as sick as our secrets. When we bring the secrets out into the light, it takes their energy away, it takes their power away, and it gives others hope that they can heal too, that they can share their secrets. So here's a question for you. Is there a secret or shame that you are carrying around with you? If there is, what is it costing you? And do you have someone in your life that you can share it with? Someone that you trust? And perhaps there's someone in your life where you can be that safe place. You can be that open ear. The power of being heard is incredible, absolutely incredible to unlock potential. The third key to unlock your leap or unlock your potential is the need to be celebrated. And we celebrate all the courageous women who come to our programs as they share what they've hidden for so long and bring it out into the light. We can't help but be touched and inspired by them. I can't tell you how it touches me so deeply. I want to tell you about Angelica. Angelica was one of these women that came into our classroom with her head down. And she's this small woman. She's a little bit under 5 feet tall. And she walked with her head down and her shoulders hunched forward. She had been caring for her disabled son, Bill, for his whole life, and he's an adult now. She'd been fighting and advocating for him to get an organ transplant, which he finally did 6 years ago. But when she came to us, she said, "Dana, I was at that point in my life where I didn't think that anyone cared whether Bill and I lived or died. But I know now that people care. I know that they do." And here's what happened for Angelica. So she's in our leadership program, and one night she comes up to the front of the room and she speaks to our class. And she says, "I don't have the words to share with you how much this has meant for me and how wonderful I feel, but what I want to do is I want to sing for you." I'm like, okay. So Angelica, this little tiny woman, stands up big and tall and puts a smile on her face, and this voice comes out of her that absolutely fills our whole room. We were shocked and amazed. This little woman has this big voice. So she sang. We gave her this rousing round of applause. We were so excited and so thrilled. We didn't know she sung. What she told us next was even more amazing. She said, "That's the first time in 40 years that I have stood in front of an audience and sang. When I was a teenager, I was actually a vocal star. And my voice coach was so excited for me. He said that I had the talent to go to New York and to go to Broadway or to be an opera star. He went to my parents and he asked them permission to take me to New York. And they said no. Angelica's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. She would be eaten up alive if she went to New York." Well, her dream died that night and she stopped singing. It was reborn 40 years later as she's standing in our classroom with this big voice. The power of being seen, the power of being heard, the power of being celebrated. I asked Angelica if she would sing that song at our graduation ceremony, and she did. And she blew away our whole room, and everyone was standing and giving her a rousing round of applause. It was one of the happiest days, well, she said the happiest day of her life. And that's what happens when you bring out what's been hidden for so long. It frees you, it liberates you, and it allows you to express your true talents and gifts and touch everyone in an amazing way. So I told you I wanted to introduce you to these women, and I actually have them with me today, so I'm going to show you these beautiful women that you've heard about. There's Jill. Jill, who was homeless on the streets of San Diego, is a Leap to Success graduate. Today, she is a property manager. She's reunited with her children and grandchildren. Remarkable transformation. Here's beautiful Angelica. You can just see the love beaming out of her eyes. That was on her graduation day. That was the day she sung her song, proudly and beautifully. And here is Lena with her daughter Grace, who was 4 years old, who today is 12, and as you can see, a beautiful, budding teenager. Lena is one of the most special people in my life because she was in our very first program, and she helped me discover my purpose, to help survivors share their stories, to free them and be able to empower and inspire others. I want to leave you with this. Who in your life can you reach out to? Can you tell that they matter? And I'd like to ask you to do it in this way and say these words, which are so, so powerful. I see you. I hear you. I celebrate you. Thank you.